Buenos dias, good morning. um, it's about 8 a.m. here. I just woke up. I woke up later today. Feel a bit tired, a bit drained, but life goes on, eh? And I wanted to talk today about something that I've been thinking about over the last couple of days, and that is awakening. And when I say awakening, I'm not just talking about spiritual awakening or, that buzz term, spiritual awakening. What you would probably see a lot of on social media at the moment, and, in the last few years, it's really taken off. I think there's a whole subgenre around spirituality to do with like crystals and being awake and ascending and that kind of stuff. What I'm going to be talking about is awakening from the unconscious mind, which I think actually ties into spiritually awakening too. And that's why I love spirituality, because of how many hands it reaches out to science. And in this way, it just makes so much sense, right? So when I talk about awakening from the unconscious mind, if you picture our brains, there are many different parts to our brains. As we've evolved, we've, gained new parts like our frontal lobe, which I believe is the last part of the brain to develop. For most people, it develops around 25. I think if you're on the neurodivergent scale, it's a little bit later, closer to 30. The frontal lobe is in charge of us making decisions, having more, I want to say it's like an adult brain. Like, the difference between a teenager and an adult. A teenager will just go off on whatever they feel. They're very impulsive, they will react first rather than, think and like dwell on things. The thinking and the dwelling and the knowing between right or wrong, that is all the frontal lobe, right? So what if I told you we've got this part of our brain called the amygdala, I want to say, and that is the oldest part of our brain. Before our frontal lobe fully develops, a lot of us will react from this part of our brain. So let me just give you a bit more information on the old part of our brain. This part of the brain was the primary part that we used when we were hunter-gatherers, when we, like our ancestors all those years ago, when we were like fighting animals and, hunting for our food. We had to be quick on our feet, full of adrenaline. The flight, fight, or freeze or fawn coping mechanisms all stem from this time of our existence, when we had to have these feelings, otherwise we would literally die. So since then we've evolved. Our brains have evolved too, but we still have this old part of our brain where we tend to go into when we're stressed, when we have a trigger. It's also where all our childhood trauma is stored. So when we get triggered, our consciousness goes into this middle old part of our brain, out of our frontal lobe, and we become very emotional and we react emotionally. When I say awaken from the unconscious brain, I'm talking about in those tough moments where it seems like, someone said something and it's just hurt so much and I want to react and I want to tell them how they made me feel, or I want to fight them, or I want to just like run away. These are all coming from the old part of our brain in order for us to cope with the situation that we're in. The only problem is it doesn't do that much to protect us from our emotions. Instead, when we're in this part of our brain, we feel all of our emotions so deeply, and that can lead to depression and painful feelings and feeling like life isn't fair, etc., etc. So when I say awaken from the unconscious brain, I mean in those moments where it seems like it's so much and it seems like the world is against me, this person hates me, whatever it is, that's the time where we can use our free will to bring us out of the old part of our brain and back into the new. And we can do that by coming into the present moment. So we can awake to the present moment. Because the present moment is always present, it's always existing. No matter what is happening, no matter who's saying who, no matter how we feel, the present moment is something that is continuously happening. It's a constant. It's one of the only constants in our life, is now. I think when people talk about awakening spiritually, I think one of the first steps to do is awaken from the unconscious brain. And that takes practice. In fact, I'm still practicing that on a daily. Like sometimes I get very reactive. And other times because I've been doing the practice for so long, I can see where I've come from what I was. For example, newer friends my housemate actually told me that I was the calmest person he'd ever met, which is hilarious to me. Because if you ask any of my school friends, they would not say I was the calmest person that they've ever met. In fact, maybe quite reactive and angry. Growing up, I had a lot of anger issues, especially with my dad. Me and my dad just butted heads all the time, and we would fight and shout at each other all the time. And that's because I was reacting from, this old part of the brain. It's only in the last 5-6 years where I stopped completely. I mean, he would still shout at me because that's just what parents do, right? But I stopped giving him the satisfaction of having a reaction. Instead, in those moments, my adult voice got really strong, and to this day it is really strong. And I tell myself, it's not that deep, it will pass. You don't need to give your reaction because it's just going to make you feel worse later. Just keep it inside now and let it pass. I'm not saying to shut it down, shut emotions down. No, because that's how we get traumas. I'm saying to just let them pass. Let them pass like a storm, like a cloud, like the weather. And you don't have to react. You can come back into the now. You can come into the present moment. You can awaken to the present moment. You can awaken out of the unconscious brain. You have free will. You just have to remember that you have free will. In those moments, in the moments of hardship, it's easy for me to sit here and say this now when I'm so calm and I've just done a meditation and I feel really zen. But that's not my life 24/7. Life is full of lessons, and if anyone says their life is completely peaceful with nothing going wrong, then are you even on planet Earth? Because I'm pretty sure we're all here to learn. But just because we're learning doesn't mean we have to suffer. And I think a big part of not suffering is learning that we don't have to just be in that old part of the brain. We don't have to just let whatever comes up, whatever traumas, whatever coping mechanisms come up. If they no longer serve us, there's no point. It's just pain. So our brains never came with a manual. I mean, it would have been bloody helpful if they did, but it's like the manual is in there somewhere. We just need to find it. And we were never taught all this in school. We were taught about snippets of history and random math, full stops, punctuation, but we weren't taught how to maneuver our brains and work our bodies, really. Which is crazy to me. But and in fact a lot of us gained trauma from these formative years, that we now have to unlearn and grow from all by ourselves, which is extremely difficult sometimes, and it's a big task. But I'm here to help you like I'm helping myself, and I think an important part of that is awakening from the unconscious mind. Just coming into the now, not dwelling on all the little stories that go on here. What if I told you you weren't the voice in your head? The voice in your head is your brain talking to you. It's not you. You are that quiet awareness that's just allowing everything to just unfold. You're not that chatty voice in your head. That's your brain just, telling you stuff all the time. Which is good, but we don't need to listen to it all the time. It's not us. It's just our brain, and our brain copes with things in a lot of unhealthy ways and healthy, but we can train it. We can train our brain to cope with things healthily. We can train our brain to see things as they actually are, not how they seem, because our brain is what creates our whole reality. So imagine what can be achieved if we just learnt to control our brain. We would be able to control our whole reality. Yeah, let that sink in. So, I don't know. To me, this is the most important work, is learning to control our own brains and just giving each other love as we do so. Everyone's going through their own shit. Everyone's got their own story going on, So don't take things too personally, and learn to come into the present. It's like I said, it's easy for me to say it right now. I'm talking about in the hard moments, in the moments when we want to be unconscious, we want to just yell, we want to just fight someone. Those are the moments that we have to come out of the unconscious into the present moment. And yeah, that's what I wanted to say today. Thank you for listening. I really love to make these videos because it helps me just to hear myself say my thoughts out loud, and I know that a few of you have messaged me saying that you like the videos, and that means so much to me. You have no idea. So thank you for watching. I hope you have a beautiful day, and I love you.